Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. We're going to give a few seconds so people can get into the chat and join us. Igor, how are you today?
Very well. Thank you so much, Corbin. Yourself?
I'm fantastic. It's a little cloudy, but I'm happy to be joining you today. It's got a big smile on my face and kind of a nice precursor for NCIC, which you guys will be at as well.
Yes, very shortly.
Awesome. Well, I
Hoping
see
to
people
see
are.
a lot of immigrant consultants there.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you will. And I see people are joining us now too. So I'm going to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session titled Certified is Not Enough Translation, Compliance, and Immigration Applications, sponsored by Translation Agency of Canada. My name is Corbin Peter. I am CAPIC's Senior Event Coordinator, and I'm joined today by Igor Isaev. Igor is a certified translator in Canada. He personally working across 10 language pairs, an unusual broad scope for a certified, single certified professional, and the founder of Translation Agency of Canada. Through the agency, he supports a much wider range of languages by collaborating with a network of certified translators in Canada and internationally, including rare and less commonly supported languages often encountered in complex immigration cases. With extensive experience supporting immigration applications, Igor focuses not only on linguistic accuracy, but ensuring that translations meet the specific compliance requirements of IRCC, provincial immigration programs, and other receiving authorities. His work bridges the gap between certified translations and real world submission requirements, helping immigration professionals avoid delays, reduce risk, and achieve smoother outcomes. Before I let Igor take over everything, I will do a couple of housekeeping notes for those in attendance. Just a reminder, if you have anything that you want to share amongst the attendees, please put that in the Zoom chat box. But if you have something you want to share and ask Igor at the end of the session, place that in the Zoom Q&A box, and that way we'll be able to see and answer that at the end of the presentation. Currently, the presentation is not up on CAPIC Connect because we're going to upload it afterwards. So that way you have your full undivided attention on Igor today in the live Zoom. With that said, I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Igor for joining us as well. And I'll hand it over to you, Igor, and I will see you at the Q&A session.
So much, Corbin. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. I'm hoping you all can see my screen. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for joining today. My name is Igor Isaev. I am a certified translator here in Canada and also the founder of the Translation Agency of Canada. I'm personally certified as a translator in all 8 Canadian translation associations. You can see the logos on the title screen for language combinations involving Russian, Ukrainian, English, and French, all the different directions and language pairs. For all the other language pairs, translations are delivered through my translation agency, where we collaborate with a network of professionals and certified translators across Canada and internationally. Today, I want to talk to you about something that looks very simple on the surface, translations, but in reality can quietly affect the outcome of your immigration applications. So I'll skip to the next slide. And most applications for immigration are not refused because of translations, but many are delayed, many are questioned, many are sent back for additional documents. In many of those cases, translations are technically correct, but they are not aligned with the actual requirements from the immigration authorities. That is the gap that we deal with, and that's what I want to show you today. So the core problem is one of the biggest misconceptions in immigration work is that certified translation equals to compliant translation. In reality, certification only confirms who made that translation, the person. It doesn't guarantee that the translation will be accepted by the receiving authority. And that's where all the issues begin. In many workflows, translations are treated as a routine step, something that just has to be done to progress your immigration application. In practice, actually, it's an additional risk layer inside your immigration application. Even small inconsistencies can trigger delays, additional requests from immigration authorities and officers. And those delays don't just affect your timelines, they affect your client's trust in you as an immigration consultant. So what's interesting in translation that they fail rarely because of language mistakes. Nowadays, there are so many translation softwares and professionals working with all different languages, but they usually fail because of context. So a name is spelled inconsistently, slightly differently across different documents, or a bilingual document can be only partially translated from one of the two languages, or a certain stamp or seal is left untranslated. Individually, those small things can look minor, but in real life, they create friction between your immigration application and immigration authorities, those officers. And that's where the problem appears. Another big challenge is that there is no one single standard all across Canada. Because you as immigration professionals, you are working with IRCC, obviously, for federal immigration programs, but also with magnitude of different provincial programs run by those provinces, sometimes a group of provinces. You're dealing with different translator associations, sometimes specific requirements from that institution on how they want translation to be made. And these expectations are not the same uniform across all Canada. I'll explain further in more details. So the same document may need to be handled differently depending on where it's going. So just a step back to cover when we speak about certified translators in Canada, what exactly are we speaking about? So it's important to understand that there isn't just one unified system across Canada for certification of professional translators. There is CITIC, which is Canadian Translators, Terminologists, and Interpreters Council, which is a national umbrella organization covering most provincial associations. So CITIC includes STIBC in British Columbia, a Society of Professional Translators in that province, CTINB in New Brunswick, ATIO in Ontario, ATIA in Alberta, ATIM in Manitoba, ATIS in Saskatchewan, and ATINS in Nova Scotia. Those 7 associations, they're sometimes called association, sometimes called society, sometimes called corporation, all the same thing. This is an association of translators in that province. So CITIC includes all these 7 organizations under their umbrella. And then there is OTIAC, which is the Order of Certified Translators, Terminologists, and Interpreters of Quebec, which is a separate, completely system, not included into CITIC. This distinction matters because different authorities recognize different associations and different bodies differently. So different authorities recognize them differently in a way. So MIFI, let's take, for example, MIFI is the Ministère de l'Immigration, Minister of Immigration of Quebec. MIFI only accepts translations that are made by translators who are either OTIAC certified, STIP certified, CTINB, ATIO. Those 4 associations only are accepted. All the other 4, ATIA Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, members of those associations are not by default accepted to MIFI. Even though these translators are fully certified in Canada, they have the certification status and whatnot, but particularly for MIFI, the requirements are different. Alberta, for the Alberta Provincial Immigration Program, on the other hand, requires you to work specifically with translators who are members of ITIA, Alberta Translation Association, specifically for Alberta. Again, all the other associations, including OTIAC and ATIO in Ontario, they're all certified across Canada, but for Alberta provincial programs, the requirements are specific for those provincial programs, and they require ATIA. So again, same country, Canada, same concept of certification of translators, but different rules depending on where the document package goes. Beyond these details about translator associations, there are also some more technical differences. So IRCC, for example, which is the Federal Ministry of Immigration, they typically expect certified translators to come with a stamp. So on the IRCC website, if you go to canada.ca and Google translation requirements, it will say it has to bear the stamp or seal of a certified translator, something like that. Not all associations of certified translators in Canada issue stamps. Stamps are property of the association. When a translator like me becomes certified in an association, they usually give you a stamp, except for ATINS. So Association of Translators in Nova Scotia, they have never created a stamp design. It's a very small association, but still, They never developed a stamp design. They don't issue stamps. So if a translator is a member of ATINS, a certified translator in Canada, but doesn't have a stamp, um, ordering translations from that member, from that certified translator, creates a high risk for you. SINP, which is Saskatchewan Immigration Program, provincial program, this program requires affidavit made by a translator in front of a notary in a very specific format. They have a template on their website, SINP website, which you can download. It has all the different additional things that SINP wants you to include in the translator affidavit, which is not universally present even for IRCC or other provinces. British Columbia, for example, translations must be only in English. The BC requirements say that if a document is not in English, it has to be translated. All the other provinces, except for BC, IRCC, federal, whatever provinces, they all have English or French. So BC is very particular, English only, not French. If your documents are in French, if the immigrant is coming from France or French-speaking countries, there are many of them in Africa, everything has to be translated into English for BC provincial nominee program. We made a separate document, a separate PDF with all the different requirements from different immigration programs. I know there's many, so we collected one top one for each province, and then obviously express entry for IRCC, which is the biggest one. And we compiled screenshots and links to all the different requirements from different provinces and into a separate file, which will be shared by the CAPIC team with you after this meeting is over. So you can download and read all the details by yourself. These are all small details: languages, stamps, affidavits, formatting, translator membership in a certain association. But these details directly affect whether your documents and your translations are accepted with no questions or questioned. Across many files, what we see when we work with different immigrants here in Canada, we see the same pattern. Translator could do their work as usual, the usual way, without knowing the specific context of the case, which province is going to, what kind of requirements. So the requirements of that program are not considered, or something small is missed, like a stamp in another language is missed and not translated at all. And this is enough to create questions from immigration authorities and immigration officers. And we get all these questions all the time and have to, unfortunately, rework all these documents and help the clients rework these translations to make sure they are accepted. What we see in real life. So I prepared a few cases from our past customers just to highlight all those small details that exist. So one of the issues is spellings. People coming from those countries where Latin alphabet is not official in the country, like Russia, Ukraine in this case, they could have their last names, first name, patronymic, and stuff like that spelled differently. This difference comes from, number one, different countries where the documents come from, different languages used in those countries. Like in this case, we have a document for the same person coming from Russia and from Ukraine. They are police clearance certificates, but from different countries. So these languages in different countries use different transliteration systems. And that's where translation becomes more than simply conveying words from one language into another language. So let's say from Russian to English. But then these details come into play. The surname, to anybody who watches this webinar, who reads Russian Ukrainian, it's clear it says Kostenko. So this is relatively straightforward. There's only one way you can spell this. Most translators will do a good job and spell it the same way. But the first name, Alexei in Russian or Oleksiy in Ukrainian, how do you spell it? With A, with O in the beginning, and KS could be spelled multiple different ways, and I at the end could be spelled as I, Y, I, Y, I. We've seen all the possible combinations you can imagine as a translation agency. We've seen all different versions. Same thing with the patronymic, which is Alexandrovich in this case in Russian or Alexandrovich in Ukrainian. Again, the spelling is different. A, O in the beginning. Technically, these are small details, and these are all valid and correct transliteration of the same last name and first name, but you need to think as an immigration officer who looks at the documents from a client, will this officer have doubts and questions? Okay, is this the same person or is this a different person? Did they change their name? Did they, change the patronymic or change the last name somewhere in the process? Where are all the supporting documents? So when we prepare documents for our clients and for many of the immigration consultants who already work with us, we always ask this question: how do you spell the last names, first names, patronymics of everybody who is present in those documents, all the clients and their relatives, in English or in French if it goes to Quebec, obviously? Do these people have Canadian documents? Maybe a visa, maybe a work permit, maybe a study permit, maybe some previous applications, because consistency matters. If the name is spelled consistently across all the documents, it's easier for the immigration officer to make a positive decision for your application. If the file is being worked on by multiple different translators independently, and those people those people choose to use different spellings, it can create confusion, additional requests, delay, identity concerns from the immigration authorities. So our approach is always holistic. We don't look at the documents individually one by one. We look at the entire immigration file, all the documents combined, to decide how we should spell those names in the immigration translation. Another example, this is the IELTS test result from one of our clients. Obviously, we masked all the personal information, so it's not shared with third parties. But just to give you an idea, at the first glance, the document appears to be fully in English. Most people, including most of our clients and most of immigration consultants, would naturally assume that no translation is required. It's already in English. But if you look closely at the bottom, there is a stamp in Azerbaijani language, which is not English, obviously. And that's exactly the type of detail that often gets missed. From compliance perspective, when an immigration officer looks at this, their requirement is very clear. Anything non-English or non-French, depending on the requirements, anything non-English or non-French must be translated, including all the seals, all the stamps, all the handwritten notes, even if it's pen and paper, written something, or pencil written notes, any embedded text elements, everything has to be translated, because if you don't know Azerbaijani language, you don't know what the stamp says. What if it says sample, or what if it says cancelled, or anything like that? You wouldn't know until you get a proper translation. So from a compliance perspective, this is not minor or unimportant. This is as important as the main text, if you call it so, of the document. So any non-English elements, if they are left untranslated, unattended, could potentially trigger questions or concerns about completeness. What is this person hiding? Why are they hiding? Can trigger additional questions. One more issue which I wanted to show you, which we recently received a few requests from our clients and a few requests from immigration consultants. Going back to the compliance thing, this is the case where client was in Poland, and they had to translate their police certificate from Ukrainian language into English for IRCC. But the client being in Poland, they wanted to save money and use the cheaper translation services in Poland, obviously. And for Poland, the process is very straightforward. In Poland, they have to translate everything into the official language of the country, which is into Polish. So the translation agency in Poland did translation from Ukrainian into Polish, and then from Polish into English. So two-step, two-layered translation process. And IRCC, when they got this translation, they rejected this because it doesn't follow the IRCC requirement. So the requirement is just one translation into English, and IRCC sent this letter to a few of people who we know, rejecting their translation, requiring them to redo the translation from scratch, exactly from Ukrainian directly into English. So all these small details, which could look small, to somebody who is not as experienced, they create delays in the immigration processes. So these applications are returned to the clients. The client has to redo their translation, resubmit the application, pay their fees again, most likely lose several months, maybe half a year during the process. And just imagine what can happen if the program is already closed, because some immigration programs, they have a hard deadline, and then if that deadline is passed, you can't really do anything to submit, another application. So this all can create a lot of problems. Tricky part is that all these small issues that I mentioned are not really obvious to an unexperienced eye. Everything looks correct. The document is translated, translation is certified, it's formatted, close to the original, but it's not aligned with the submission expectations. It's not aligned to what the officer expects to see. And these problems often appear much later during the review stage, already with immigration authorities, when it's too late. Some cases are even more complex by default. So, for example, rare languages. There are so many cases where we receive documents in rare languages when there are no certified translators available in Canada in that language combination, or a very limited amount of such translators who are usually super busy and they don't take additional work, or cases when the documents contain mixed languages, two, three languages at the same time. These are the cases where the standard approach doesn't work and the most breakdowns happen. So one example on this slide, this is a document from Kazakhstan. Again, this is in Kazakh language, which is official for Kazakhstan. If this document would be going to any immigration program, let's say Ontario Immigration Provincial Nominee Program in Ontario, we would need to use an ATIO certified translator. So on the right side, you can see a screenshot from the ATIO directory where it shows that there is no certified translators, members of ATIO from Kazakh into English right now. This screenshot was made like yesterday or close to that. So at today's point in time, there is nobody who is certified in Canada. There are many languages like this. You would be surprised. All the smaller audience languages have the same issue. For Kazakh specifically, there is nobody in ATIO who is certified into English. Same thing into French. Same thing across all other provincial associations of translators. You can check OTIAC, you can check British Columbia, it doesn't matter. There is nobody certified in Kazakh language or Uzbek or Tajik or any other from hundreds of smaller languages from ex-Soviet Union. So when we receive a document like this, the question is no longer simply, can this be translated? Because obviously it can be translated. There are, that many millions of Kazakh speaking people and that many millions of Kazakh professional translators in the world. But the real question becomes, how do you structure the translation in a way that it becomes acceptable by the immigration authority? So what do they need on the translation? What kind of stamp, certification, signature, affidavit, notarization, whatnot is required by immigration authorities to make it acceptable for them? And different jurisdictions and different programs handle the situations completely different. Sometimes you need an alternative certification method. Sometimes you need affidavits. Sometimes you need translators selected certain way. This is where linguistic part is often easiest, but the real challenge is managing the compliance side. That's where our expertise lies. Another example, just so you know, it's not the only example that I'm showing. Another example is this conversation on the left, which is a WhatsApp chat conversation between a husband and a wife or a wife-to-be in a Filipino dialect. So this could be Tagalog, and there is nobody again certified for the official Filipino language called Tagalog in ATIO, from Tagalog into English, same thing into French, same thing all the provinces. Doesn't matter. There's nobody certified. And we've seen people submit screenshots of communication specifically for spousal sponsorship, usually, of different screenshots of their conversations in Ilocano, which is another dialect from Philippines, and like 10 other different smaller dialects, not as popular. Obviously, there is no certified translators in Canada. This creates a really practical immigration problem, not because this cannot be translated, because obviously you can translate all this, but because the compliance pathway becomes more complicated. So the key issue is how you handle the certification of such translation. Another example. On the left, you see a document coming from Soviet Russia, which is like a transcript from university of sort. This document is originally in Russian. Everything that you see typed is in Russian language, but it has several stamps, some of the stamps in Arabic language, some of the stamps in the Ukrainian language. From compliance perspective, everything that is non-English or non-French must be translated. So not just the main text, which is in Russian, but also all those stamps in Arabic and also all those stamps in Ukrainian. The challenge with such documents goes even further. How do you assemble the package for immigration authorities? Do you combine everything into one translation package? One file which has all the three? Or do you prepare separate three files, one per language combination? Which translator makes and certifies each of these three parts? These are not linguistic decisions anymore. Obviously, there's linguistic decisions on how to translate certain word terminology from Russian, Ukrainian, and Arabic involved in this. But there are next level decisions on compliance and submission strategy. This is what we do for every case, how we handle the situations individually for our clients. So if I step back, the issue is very clear what we deal with, in our everyday work. Between translation and approval from immigration authority, there is a missing layer. This layer is coordination, awareness of the context, compliance throughout the preparation of translation process. Without this layer of coordination, even good translations, linguistically correct, can create problems with immigration authorities. That's exactly where we position ourselves. So we don't see ourselves as a translation provider, even though we are obviously a translation provider, a translation agency. But our strength is that we act as a coordination layer between the translator or team of translators. There is multiple languages involved. Coordination between translators, documents, and immigration requirements. So we are as a coordination expert between all these three. What we actually do, we here in the Translation Agency of Canada, in practical terms, we assign translators based on specific case requirements that we get from immigration consultants like yourself or from your clients. We give clear instructions to our translators, not just generic translation, make it good, but we give specific requirements what we need from them. We give specific requirements on the formatting, submission expectations, to make sure it's appropriate for that jurisdiction where it's going, to make sure that the final output of our work is ready for your submission with no questions asked. Our process and our workflow is structured around compliance. So we start with understanding the case, understanding where this is going, to which authority. Then we check the requirements of that authority and, make sure we understand what they need. Select the appropriate translator, either the association, language combination, notarization, all those details come into play. Then we coordinate the team of translators or individual translator if it's just one language. And finally, we do quality control. So we make sure that the text is properly translated, fully translated, formatting is correct, certification is correct. Not just translation, which you get anywhere else, but controlled delivery ready for your submission. Where we add the most value are those edge cases. Edge cases, I mean, rare languages when there is no locally available certified translators like the Kazakh language or Tagalog or Ilocano, or very few available translators from those languages, or when where you need alternative certification solution, or where the documents are really non-standard and complex. What we take pride in, we don't escalate problems back to you. We solve these problems for you. At the same time, I understand that timelines are super important and critical for most of your clients because these immigration processes immigration programs, and I've been through them myself as well, obviously, they have quotas, they have deadlines until the programs are closed, and then it's too late to apply. So with the help of large team of translators who I collected here in Canada and internationally, and a large team of client managers, we are able to support you 24/7, almost 24 and exactly 7. We support you through emails, through any messenger systems like WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram. What else is there? We are everywhere to fully support you. And most standard cases are completed within 1 to 2 business days. Everything includes our standard compliance check, our quality control. So our main value is that you get the final output of our work that is quality controlled and ready for your submission. When you work with individual translators, even certified translators in Canada, you get just a translation. When you work with us, you get a submission ready document ready to go. So accuracy in translations is standard. Everybody else does it in the market, every other translator, every other good agency. Compliance is what we bring to you as additional value, compliance to those requirements from immigration programs. Now, to wrap up this session, I wanted to show you one thing that we developed specifically for members of CAPIC, specifically for those who attend this webinar and watch the recording later on. So on the website, our website, translationagencyofcanada.ca, we created a priority translation calculator. So if you go to the specific link, translationagencyofcanada.ca/CAPIC, and obviously you'll have the link in the presentation, all the files that will be shared by CAPIC team after the webinar. But it's also easy to remember /CAPIC. If you add, you'll get a online 24/7 available calculator that will estimate the pricing, turnaround time, translation availability, depending on all those details that I mentioned: language pair, certification requirements, province where it's going. I'll quickly walk you through just a few slides on how the calculator works, so you become more aware of how it works and you can use it in your everyday work. One more thing that we did for CAPIC members is that this link, whenever somebody fills in the request on this link, it comes to our email inbox already highlighted as urgent, bold, red. So it comes as a priority message, which we attend to faster than all the other regular cases, let's say. So when you go to this link, this screen opens up, translations, priority for CAPIC members, and there's a yellow button, get the exact price quote now. When you click this button, you go into the calculator itself. On the bottom right corner, there's an online chat with us now, where you can chat and get quick online support 24/7. If you go to the calculator, the first screen pops up and you're required to enter your name, email, phone number if you want to be contacted by the phone. Email is what we usually collect, for all such requests. Then on the next slide, you need to upload all the documents that have to be translated. You can upload maximum 10 files here. There are certain limitations in terms of megabytes. If your files are heavier or if you have more files, just email them to us, mention that you are from CAPIC, and we'll prioritize your request accordingly. The website shows that we need front sides and back sides of all the documents because there is always text on the front and back. Then on the next step of the calculator, you need to select which authority you're submitting to. There's a drop-down list. If you click, there's a list of all the most commonly used provincial and federal immigration programs. There's also Passport Canada. There's also Refugee Board. There's obviously IRCC, stuff like that. So you select where this translation is going. There's a big list of all the different organizations in Canada for which we already know the requirements and we can prepare translations accordingly. On the next slide, obviously, it requests you to input the source language. So you select from drop-down list, let's say Russian in this case. And then on the next slide, target language. So if the Organization which you selected allows you to submit both English or French translations. You can select here English or French. If the organization only allows you to submit English, you will only be able to see here English only. This is the case for British Columbia, as I mentioned on one of the previous slides. Same thing for certain Quebec organizations. They only require translations to be done into French. In that case, you'll see French only and you cannot change the selection. So we are avoiding any potential mistakes at this stage already. Then you input how many pages are there in your documents. There is a minimum order of 1 page, obviously. And you can see some examples of standard documents and how we calculate, what's 1 page, what's half a page, what's 10 pages, examples of that. Then on the next slide, on the next step of the calculator, you input spellings of how you properly spell all the last names, first names. If you have patronymics as well, of everybody who's mentioned in those documents, again, in English or French, depending on where it goes. And on the next step, you already see the timeline. So for those selections that I made when I was doing the slides, it was probably from Russian language for IRCC. You can see it's usually done within 1 to 3 business days. If you need this more urgently, you can click the button, I need this translation urgently, and we'll prioritize it for you. Then on the last step of the calculator, you need to select whether you need paper versions. Most our clients need paper versions, not because immigration programs require them, because mostly everything is applied online now. You don't need paper versions anymore. But most clients still want to hold something in their hands and have as a backup in case they're called for the interview or something. So we always are prepared to ship paper versions. If you don't need them, just highlight, I will not need paper versions. If you need them, you can select regular mail and we ship regular mail, Canada Post all throughout Canada for free. You can also select Express Post, which is with the courier, with the tracking number, faster delivery. That's a fixed price, $28.25 for today, covering all across Canada. You input your address or the client's address, any other comments that you might have in this on this last step. And then you immediately see the timeline, the price, how it's calculated, the cost of Express Post shipping, how many pages, and you can click confirm your order, and the order will come to us through email and we will immediately start working. We will, of course, always confirm by email to whoever made the request that we received the request. We will verify the documents that were uploaded, how many documents were uploaded, what language they are in. We will check all those small details that I mentioned about stamps, if a stamp is in a different language, if the document is multilingual, bilingual, trilingual. We will highlight all those things to you by email, but you can click confirm your order and we will start working on your order immediately. I want to leave you with one simple checklist which we prepared for members of CAPIC that you can use in your daily work. The CAPIC team will post a link to download this checklist as a separate PDF file. So please download, save it, and use it in your daily work. So this checklist is very simple. Before submitting translations to any immigration authority for any of your clients, just take a second to verify, should translations be English or French? That depends on the immigration program. It's not universally same thing all across Canada, unfortunately. Are all elements in other languages fully translated? If their documents have a bilingual, trilingual content, everything, every stamp has to be translated. Does the translation certification match the requirements for this immigration program and accepting authority? Or if you don't know, check. Are all names spelled consistently across all documents so that there are no questions asked from the immigration authorities? And bilingual documents, are they fully translated from both languages because the content can be different in both languages? These small checks and small, details can prevent bigger issues after you submit your documents. And here's the last slide that I will basically conclude my presentation. This is another additional document that we will share with the CAPIC team, which is the useful links with requirements I mentioned already in the start. And this is a collection of links to official immigration programs and their requirements specifically for translations. You'll find links to official websites and screenshots from those official websites highlighting different requirements. And you can also download and check and share with your clients and use it in your everyday work with your clients. So that's all. If you ever need support with any translation needs, if it's a standard case or something more complex and more urgent, feel free to reach out. My contacts are on the screen. They'll be inside the presentation. You have QR code to go to our website. I'm always happy to look at your case and give you any practical guidance. Thank you so much. I'm ready to take any questions now. Corbin,
Awesome.
if you can check if anybody made any questions in the chat so we don't miss those. And then if anybody has any questions live, I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Igor, for the very detailed and very well executed presentation. That is a wealth of knowledge for CAPIC members. I am checking the Q&A box. Everyone, this is the time to put your questions in the box for Igor. But we have a question, and it asks, what is the correct order of pages for a translated document? Knowing it must have the original affidavit translation, I have seen different orders and sometimes missing originals from translations done outside of Canada.
It's a very good question. Thank you to, I don't know who asked, but thank you so much for asking. There is no particular order anywhere in the immigration requirements. So the order is not written, can be anything. But what's important, number one, is to have everything in one place. It's bad when it's in different files because immigration officer can miss one file or forget to download one of the files, and then he'll be stuck without one of the pages or without the affidavit or without the original. So what we usually tend to do is put everything into one translation package to just avoid any mistakes with downloading. And one important thing is with the originals. What we always do in our translation packages is we put the original inside the package and then apply a stamp of the translator or the stamp of the agency, something there to show what we actually worked with, what we worked from as a translator, to again avoid any suspicion that this is not the same document. What if the client submits different document or forgets to upload the original at all? Then the authority who is reviewing the case, they'll have at least something in the translation package. So yeah, this is what we usually do.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Igor. That's it for questions as of right now. There might be someone typing it in. So during this time, oh, there we go. We got one from Tim. Tim asks, excellent presentation, Igor. You gave an example of where documents must be translated to French in some cases. I'm in Quebec, and while I usually get my clients to oh, sorry, he's still typing. He accidentally sent it originally. So we'll give him a second to answer or finish his question. But maybe in the meantime, Igor, maybe, oh, sorry, there you go. He got it to us. All right, so let me do this again. You gave an example of where documents must be translated to French in some cases. I'm in Quebec, and while I usually get my clients to translate to French, what situations require French-only translations?
As far as I know, for immigration application in particular, there is no program that require only French, because even the MIFI, which is the ministry in Quebec, they allow English and French. Good. Particularly French only is required for Directeur de l'État Civil, which is the what's the English equivalent? Civil status registry, civil registry of Quebec. So this is when somebody is applying for change of the legal name, change of the last name, getting married, getting divorced in Quebec. So those that authority requires French only. If you go to our website to calculator and just scroll down, there's a list of like 250 different organizations, and the requirements are built in on the back end of the system. Just try selecting different ones and clicking on the next slide, on the next step of the calculator. Some of them will give you French only. The one I remember top of my head is Directeur d'État Civil, which is very popular in Quebec. Others I can't remember. There is a bunch.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you,
Same
Igor.
thing, only English. Only English is BC immigration we talked about. but there is a lot of organizations which require only English. Not in Quebec, but in Ontario, for example, many licensing organizations who provide licenses for architects and engineers and doctors, they only require translations into English.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much. We have a very topical question in the world of AI right now. Gregory asks, is AI used in translations?
Are you asking Gregory specifically for our translations or like in general? In our translations, what I can say, I mean, there is no way you can stop anybody from using AI nowadays. If a translator wants to use AI, you can create whatever policies you want that will stop them from doing it, but you can't control their whatever they're doing on their computer. Everybody uses AI in a certain way, and we don't really ban translators for using AI in our work. But it's the responsibility of the translator to make sure whatever output they are providing to us as their client um, is good. So the onus of checking the output of the translation engine, be it Google Translate, be it ChatGPT, be it Claude, be it vocabulary, we don't care really. The quality control is on the translator, and those professionals who've been in this industry long, like me, they've seen the development of different tools, and it's not like super new. AI is new for everybody, but specific tools to help translators, they've always existed, and it's just, making our job faster in a way, more consistent in a way sometimes. But the quality control and the responsibility for the output is on the person who's making the translation. Whatever tool they're using, I don't really care as a manager. I only care for the output to be good.
Mhm. Perfect. Awesome. And the only one I see left is from Tim. It's more of a clarification from his last point about the French translations. He says, "Thanks, that's a very good point." And he just wants to clarify. So the issue is not really for the immigration cases, but civil registration.
For immigration cases, you need to check the requirements for a particular immigration program. There is more than 120, I think, different immigration programs, provincial immigration programs in Canada active, at different times of um, active. So every requirement is different. When we ask clients where you're applying, they give us, one or two or selection of immigration programs, and then we need to go and check the requirements. Those mostly encountered in our life are present on the website. Out of those, I know BC requires English only. I don't know any that require French only.
Perfect. Awesome. I'll let you know if we get anything else. Currently, there's nothing else in the Q&A box, but I wanted to ask you, Igor, maybe you could share, because you guys, as we mentioned at the start of this, that you guys will be having attendance and a booth at NCIC 2026 in just a few short weeks. Do you want to share and maybe tell people why they should come source you guys out at the NCIC, what you guys will be able to talk about and share with them at the conference in person?
Sure, I will be there in person on the NCIC, which is basically in 2 weeks' time, less than that. With the booth, you can come and talk to me. Any questions about translations, any questions about translators, I'm happy to answer there. I'll be there with a similar kind of setup with banners and presentation, answering any questions. I'll be handing out those checklists to those who are interested. Any questions about AI, Gregory, come shake my hand. Let's have a chat.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it personally as well. Is there anything else you wanted to go over, Igor, before we start to wrap things up during today's presentation?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much, Corbin. Very good presentation.
Awesome. Well, everyone in the chat is loving it. Thank you so much, Igor, from on behalf of CAPIC as well as the attendees today. We greatly appreciate you taking some time to speak with us. As I said, it was a very thorough, very in-depth, and I'm sure you can have a lot of people coming up to your booth asking questions as well during NCIC. For the attendees right now, if everyone can, I see Carolyn has a question about the checklist. Carolyn, we will upload that right as soon as the seminar is done. So all you have to do is go to your MyCPD programs, click on this event card, and you'll see the event, not only the presentation, but the checklist as well, as Igor said. Just give us a few minutes after the session's done, and we'll make sure you have access to it. But thank you, everyone who attended today. We greatly appreciate you guys coming out. I have shared a survey link in the Zoom chat. So if you have a few seconds, Igor and CAPIC would love to hear what you thought of today's session. And as we said, definitely join us in NCIC in just a few short weeks in Mississauga. Igor, as well as myself, would love to see you in person. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Igor, for you and your time and your presentation with this. And we look forward to a long partnership ahead with Translation Agency of Canada.
Good. See you soon. Thank you so much, Lucia and Corbin and all the team. Thank you so much. Bye bye.